York City is the city of islands. With the population boom of the 20s, it was clear that many river crossings would need to be built. There was one man that was given the task of designing almost all the New York City bridges that stand today. In this next segment, we'll see just what it takes to build a massive suspension bridge.
In 1924, my father, Othmar Alman, was assigned as engineer of bridges to construct the George Washington Bridge.
This would become Alman's first project as lead engineer, and he quickly became overwhelmed with the problems at hand.
I think first realizing that Lindenthal's project wouldn't float. Secondly, he was campaigning to have the idea of a bridge up where it is now accepted. And thirdly, he had to be adjusted to the fact that he was appointed to see that this bridge was built.
They would begin construction in 1927 with a budget of $60 million.
They had to carve out a section of Upper Manhattan and Washington Heights where there were residential apartments, people living in the pathway of the bridge. And it was no different in Fort Lee, although probably less so, because Fort Lee wasn't as populated as Washington Heights.
They started with the actual cement base of both towers.
Both towers comprised of 12 50-foot sections. Each tower section was floated in, one by one, to the piers.
The towers are 600 feet high, and they needed to be that high to make sure that the bridge allowed very tall ships to go underneath.
Then they ran the cabling going across the top of the bridge. They had an actual machine that would ride along and lay the cables, and spin it, sort of like a spider would. It would spin the cables back and forth, and would go up and down the towers and would lay the cabling. It's like millions and millions of feet of cable that went into the construction of the bridge. So it was constant day and night. It was constantly laying the cables, going back and forth, and of course, the cables that basically hold the bridge down, they laid after that. They actually built the roadways at the same time, going until they converged into the middle. And they brought them in on barges and were brought in and hoisted up to the bridge, and was sectioned off to each piece. The bridge was actually over-engineered. The cables had been buried deep into the Palisades. The support to hold this bridge is phenomenal. The bridge was designed to actually have more roadways to be added on in the future. So it's built to hold more weight that's actually there now.
12 people died in the course of construction, which actually is, to us, an inconceivably large number to be sacrificed, but at the time was not actually a huge number on a construction project. Bridge building is very dangerous. People are working up on heights. When you're spinning the cables, there are loose wires that are flipping around. People get the bends from being deep underwater, working in the caissons when you're drilling footings.
Halfway through the construction, the Great Depression hit, and the grand scale of the bridge would be forced to be reduced.
Originally, it was supposed to have a very elaborate and rather 19th century looking granite covering for the great towers of the bridge, and they decided they didn't really need to do it, that the steel was strong without it. They had originally planned elaborate bridge plazas, which featured very 19th century decorations, but these were never built due to costs. The idea for these decorations was more the notion that a great bridge is an entryway to a city, so that it conveyed to everybody that this was a noble city.
And also what the bridge did, it divided Fort Lee, and Fort Lee today still has that impact of almost being two towns. When they were building it, Fort Lee saw a real estate boom. They thought that this town was going to explode, property values would be up. There were streets designed with lots, with no homes built, in hopes that the bridge would bring, this great prosperity. Now, this is the same time the bridge was going up. Unfortunately, the prosperity really didn't hit Fort Lee till the 1960s because of the Depression.
Luckily, the city did not run out of money in the Depression to build the bridge. In fact, they came in a little bit under budget because costs went down in the Great Depression.
With the design cuts made, the bridge was able to open a full year early, which also saved an extra $1 million. On October 25th, 1931, the bridge opened its lanes to traffic.
When the bridge opened, there was a lot of festivities, and the President of the United States came to demonstrate two aspects of American engineering and ingenuity.
Othmar Ammann would go on to design the Bayonne Bridge, Triborough, Whitestone, Throgs Neck bridges, and the largest and last, the Verrazano's Narrows Bridge, before passing away in 1965.
I try to visualize Father being here at the celebration of the opening of the bridge 75 years later. This was his favorite. He really had to take the courage and the entrepreneurship to push it all. If we see him there at the opening, he won't be standing there with his chest out. He would be quietly back in the background, just very modestly enjoying everybody else's enthusiasm.
Though the bridge was not completed to the exact design of Othmar H. Ammann, it was still honored as a roaring success. The bridge, later known as the GWB, would see many more adjustments before becoming what it is today. The George Washington Bridge, 75 years crossing the Hudson, will be right back.
The bridge opens with thunderous acclaim, but the necessity of this bridge was much higher than originally expected. The construction had just begun. This George Washington Bridge factoid is brought to you by Verizon, working for you. The GWB is home to the largest free-flying American flag, draping 90 feet from the West Tower. This patriotic symbol is flown on 8 holidays: Martin Luther King Day, Washington's birthday, Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Columbus Day, Veterans Day, and of course, Flag Day.